Hello, I'm Frank Conkling, and this is Panda Consulting's ArcGIS workshops, and we are really lucky today. We have Ned Cake with Tallahassee Leon County GIS, TLC GIS, and he's going to give us a presentation on workshops. Before we start, just to remind everybody that's here, if you have comments, if you have questions, if you have something that you'd like Ned to go and actually talk about beyond the things that he's got, and this is jam-packed today. So please put them over in the chat window. Chris with Panda will be moderating that, and he'll watch and make sure. And I will try to minimize my my interruptions to Ned. So Ned, I'll let you go ahead and share your screen.
Great.
And we can go forward. And all right. Thanks, Ned.
Thank you. All right. So thanks to Panda and Frank for having me. I really appreciate it. I love these talks. I don't get to attend all of them, but I make sure to watch all of them. So a little bit about me. I've been working in local government and in GIS for about 26 years now. Graduate of Florida State University Geography Department with degrees in planning and geography. And I represent Tallahassee Leon County GIS. I am the content manager for our organization. And a little bit about Tallahassee and Leon County. We are the seat of state government here. We are the capital of Florida. And our population is in 2020 about 292,000. But that can go up or down significantly depending on whether our 3 universities are in session or state government is in session. So that's just a little bit about us. So today we're going to be talking about managing base maps and tiles in your portal. So there are some very general concepts I wanted to get out of the way early on, and those are, what is a base map? Well, if some of this seems a little too simplistic for you, we'll get through it as quickly as we can. Base map is the background of a web map or even a production printed map. It's what gives context to your map, overall context to your map. And in a web mapping scenario, there are 3 different kinds of layers. One is the background, that's the base map. The other is the operational layers. Those are the ones that are unique to this map, like a zoning layer, a FEMA layer. It's what you're trying to display. And the reference layers, they sit on top, always on top, but they are included with the base map. So I wanted to show you a couple of things here real quick. And one of these is set of TLC GIS imagery with a reference layer on top. And if you look, you can see that we have streets and labels that are always on top. They are not cooked into the tile that's underneath, the imagery tile that's underneath. They're just stacked on top of it in the base map. And if I show this same map with an operational layer, like this zoning layer, you'll see that the labels always come out on top of the operational layer, which is the zoning layer. So real quickly here, you see that we've got a nice effect. We can still see our street labels. The streets are somewhat transparent, so you can see that there is a zoning line behind it. And here, some good definitions of what a reference layer is and what an operational layer is and what a base map is. I'm going to go through, I have a lot to cover and I want to leave time for questions. So if I go too fast, do ask questions.
Hey, real quickly, I love the fact that you've got a story map here. Can you make available the link to that story map? Is that publicly available yet?
Yes, I can make it available.
Okay,
there
are
a few things in it that are tied to my credentials, like some of the galleries we'll be looking at, but I don't think those will make a huge difference.
Okay, thank you.
All right, so if you're an ArcGIS Online user, which if you're working with Esri products these days, you're pretty much tied into ArcGIS Online at some level. One of the things you notice that's always available to you is a map or a base map gallery. And I wanted to kind of show you how that works. First, I'm going to show you the traditional. This is flipping over here real quick to Firefox because I'm not logged in. When I'm not logged in, I don't get TLC GIS's base map gallery. I get the default Esri gallery, which is great. And they have a lot of great base maps in it. But supposing you need something more, you need more timely base map information, or you want to share some really unique content that's unique to your location. What you can see here is the TLC GIS base map gallery includes some Esri base maps like the world topography, and let's see, the street map and the street map at night and the dark gray, and all of our other content, base map content included in, which includes it. I believe we have 28 layers now of imagery available. Not all of it is in this base map selector, but a good bit of it is going back all the way to 1937. And I probably should have mentioned this early on. I'm a lucky GIS user. We have a staff of 13 here at TLC GIS. It's just amazing. And the content that I'm displaying for you is the product of years of work by the professionals in this office. So I want to make sure I give a shout out to them along the way here. Continuing. So I was going to show you this real quick here. Move something here out of the way. This is the base map gallery in action. This is the web app builder application. It's one of our public facing applications, and the public has access to every single one of these base maps. So if you want to see our 1954, that's one of these good sets imagery. You can see it right there. Zoom in, and it's really nice detail, but you can go all the way up to our modern imagery, 2022. So these days we do non-ad valorem assessments, and it's incumbent on the county and the city here to pay for us to get imagery every year, which we are lucky with that. So you can see here since we've started, we've had imagery almost every year. A few other things I wanted to point out here. You know, we do some nice things with colored relief models to give people an idea of what the surface of the county looks like and what the drainage patterns are in the county. And all of these are coming once again with a reference layers on top. So here are some street labels, and here are some streets that are basically coming in on top. And I'm going to show you how that works here in just a few minutes. But you can see they're coming in on top, and they give context to the map. They help you understand where you are. So continuing on here, I'm going to go ahead and open up our base map gallery. I want to actually kind of show you how that works. So to set up your own base map gallery, if you are an org admin, so this is the TLC GIS online organization, of which I'm an admin. And if I come over here to settings and map, if I don't want to use the default Esri base maps, I can choose my own base map group. And here at TLC GIS, it's just called Basemap. Okay. I'm going to open that up now and show you what's organized within that base map. And what you'll notice is that each one of these, they are just web maps. So when an application opens a base map that's in the web map group, it sees it differently than other layers that it's using in a web map. It sees it as all one piece that can be turned on and off or switched together. So let's go look at one of these and how it's put together. So this is our latest imagery. And you see I'm calling it hybrid imagery color. And hybrid basically means that there is a label overlay and a street overlay. And in this instance, I'm overlaying or mashing up a vector tile layer of labels and a vector tile layer of streets on top of a tile layer. And let's go see what that looks like in Classic Viewer. It's easier to set these up in Classic Viewer, by the way. All right, so here you see my base map has no layers in it from what you would normally expect to see. It's because they've all been moved into the base map. I've renamed it, the name that I want it to carry. And you can see here that you've got the label overlay, the street overlay, and the imagery in here. And what you'll see is that this is a reference layer. I can remove it as a reference layer, which means it would come out on bottom, but I want to keep it as a reference layer, okay? And that's basically how these things are set up. I've added it, I went to my org and I added in the imagery, I added in the streets, and I added in the labels, and I saved the map, and now it can be used as a base map because it's shared in the base map gallery.
So Ned, just to clarify, those overlays are just standard vector maps that you created, then you then reference and bring that into that web map and define them as being part of the overlays, right?
They're actually vector tiles.
Oh, excuse me, vector tile, yes.
Yes,
vector tiles.
They are. So what I've basically done is a mashup with a tile layer or raster tile layer here with two vector tile layers stacked on top of it, set as reference layers. Is that,
Thank you.
Is that what you wanted to know? Sure.
That was exactly what I wanted to make sure everyone was aware of. Yeah.
Okay. So once again, we went to our organization and we declared a group. It's the Basemap group right here. It's called Basemap. And these are all the web maps that we've shared with it, and anything we've put in there is shared properly as shared as a base map. And what's nice about this is these base maps are available to anybody who's logged into ArcGIS Pro as a user in TLC GIS, because we manage our licensing through the ArcGIS Online organization. When they log in, ArcGIS Pro has these exact same base maps available. So they don't have to go and create their own base maps or roll their own street maps, okay? They can basically use what we have. And
so one final question, Ed, is this, sure. Is there a difference between on-prem ArcGIS Online and hosted ArcGIS Online?
So no, you can load up these same web maps and declare a base map gallery in ArcGIS Online. I'm sorry, in your on-prem portal also.
Okay.
We don't use an on-prem portal, but I've talked to our Esri reps about it. There's a reason we don't. We haven't had a good enough case scenario to use one. Majority of the content that we work with is publicly available. Where it's not publicly available, you won't see it. We do other things to secure it. So
thank you.
Pretty much everything we have is out there in our online portal. So let's see. Let's go back over here. So we've kind of been through what these look like and how they're used. And here, one of the things I wanted to mention, let's go back over here real quick to the Basemap gallery, is that you can see here I've numbered these with 03, 04, 05, etc. And it's because it's the only way you can get them to really sort properly in ArcGIS Online. Because you notice here, when I bring it up in this land information app, I want them to come out in a specific order. And one of the complaints or one of the drawbacks to this is in ArcGIS Pro, the Basemap selector in ArcGIS Pro does not show these in any particular order. We'd like to be able to sort them for ArcGIS Pro, but it ignores this numbering. And it basically puts it in the order of whatever was updated last. So that's a little bit problematic for me, but you know, it's a bug request we've got into Esri to try to do something about the way it looks in ArcGIS Pro. I can show you.
So it probably uses some sort of index sequence or something. Yeah.
Right.
Okay.
Looks great on the web and in web applications, but not so good in Pro. They function just the same, but the order is a little bit out of whack. All right, so let's continue on. All right, so I've got some basic definitions of here what a tile layer is and how it relates to a base map and some web mapping standards. I'm going to go through those as quickly as I can because I think most everybody here is a GIS professional and they may have a pretty good understanding of this, but it's still worth talking about. So think about a tile layer and a traditional tile layer and a raster tile layer as just it's like an airplane flying along, taking pictures at different scales and collecting those in LODs or levels of detail. You can see here the standard Esri levels of detail. And that's another thing I wanted to mention. If you go up here, web mapping standards were created by Google being an Esri, basically in the beginning of the web mapping adventure. And they are all in Web Mercator Auxiliary Sphere coordinate system. And I know that gives a lot of the hardcore traditional GIS people problems because it doesn't measure the same as your local standard would. But keep in mind, this is web GIS. Okay, this is what we're showing the public. This isn't engineering grade GIS. This is, we're trying to show parcels, we're trying to show zoning, we're trying to show flood zones and that kind of information. And everything comes with a nice disclaimer. So if you are producing basemap content that is not in Web Mercator, you're kind of swimming upstream because you're having to create your own levels of detail and define them. I would recommend staying with the Esri being Google standard. Another thing is you can see that these base maps, I'm going to zoom in on this one a little bit here. You can see there's something here and it's called scale dependent rendering. And I can't speak loudly enough about this. There's no point in showing local roads at this scale. As we zoom in, you'll begin to see more and more detail. And that's all a big part of creating these base maps. Scale dependent symbology, who needs a legend? So if you think about it, if you tried to show a legend for all the layers that included this base map on a printed output map, it would take up most of the paper because there are so many layers in here creating this. So when you create a base map, it should be so simple and the symbology should look so natural that people don't really need to have a legend. The green stuff is either a park or a golf course or some sort of open space. And if you can't tell what it is by looking at it, it should probably have a label on it that explains what it is. Okay, zooming in, you've got labels on ponds and lakes, labels on parks, labels on roads. Pretty much everything is labeled and you can kind of get an idea what it is and you shouldn't need a legend. I ran across this in an article this week and it kind of explains when you're generating base maps, you're a cartographer. And you are an expert selecting the most important information to feature on a map based on the map's purpose. They employ different techniques to graphically elevate key content while reducing and eliminating unnecessary informational noise. They also generalize how the subject matter is represented to aid with comprehension. I'll try to give you a link to that a little bit later, but there's a really nice article out this week from Esri on cartography. And I thought that kind of was important. One of the things that you'll notice about this is, as I pan through this, they avoid hard edges. This is really, really nice work. Okay, your mind can or your eyes can kind of sweep over this. You get good context, but you're not really being stopped by much of anything. And if I throw an operational layer on top of it, still looks good. You still get the context, but you also get the focus is on the operational layer. Okay. All right, so raster tile or vector tile. So in the beginning of the web adventure, everything was raster tiles. If you wanted to be able to show a base map quickly, it had to be a raster tile. They were created in ArcGIS Server, and ArcGIS Server uses ArcMap, which is a 32-bit system, and generating raster tiles in ArcGIS Server can take a lot of time and a lot of processing power. Before ArcGIS Pro came along, we had to have a separate standalone server just for generating cache, because if we tried to build cache on our production servers, it would basically slow down our output so that our users weren't getting content like they should. So what we ended up doing is building ArcGIS Server caches on a separate box and then copying them over after hours. I'm going to show you. So this particular one here, this is a base map that I created. I think it's been up for about 15 years now. And in the beginning of this, somebody asked me why our base map didn't look a little bit more like Google. And so if you look at this very closely, you'll note that every color, every single thing in it is basically copied from a Google map circa 19, I'm sorry, not 19, but 2008, maybe 2009. Anyway, you get the idea. We were tired of being asked to make it look a lot more like Google, so we just did it. And a lot of people refer to this as the googly map. That's what our property appraiser calls it. And they used this map as their production base map for until maybe a year ago. The problem for us is that because this ArcGIS server map takes about between 14 and 18 hours to build, we weren't able to update it all that often. And if something goes down on the network or there's any kind of problem, you got to start over. So it was really difficult for us to build. So going back to this map, this is an actual raster tile. It's our street map. It's not a vector tile, it's a raster tile. And using ArcGIS Pro, this has the same levels of detail. It has the same content in it. It looks a little bit different. But this particular package, our tile package, takes 2.5 hours to create and publish, compared to 18 hours just to create. So you can see here, we've come a long way since this original that took about 18 hours. And this guy, this guy that took 2 hours. So one thing to remember here is that a raster tile can show anything you can put on a map. Okay, that'll become important when we start looking at vector tiles. So vector tiles, and this is the best definition I could find for it. They're similar to raster tile layers, but they store vector representations of the data instead of raster representations, which makes them small and fast. So I'm going to switch from this raster tile version of the Leon County street map to a vector tile version. And you notice some subtle similar differences. You know, the labeling is a little bit different. So when you generate vector tiles, it ignores some of the rules that you create for your labels, but it still does a pretty good job. It's not too bad. So this one is 2.5 hours to create. This one is 6 minutes to create and to update. And I wanted to show you some of the variety of these that we have. So we have our own clone of the Esri Gray map. And once again, we're creating our own because our data needs to be as up-to-date as possible. If they rename a street to honor somebody, historic person, and you're not able to make that change quickly to all the maps that are in use, you're going to be hearing about it. And we can't get community maps. I don't know that I mentioned community maps. It's a great program with Esri, but they will only update your base map content on a 6-month cycle, every 6 months. And so if I have a big update or something that needs to change during that 6 months, it's hard for me to communicate that change for them. Like, we can do it, but it's easier for us to just maintain our own. So let's go. This is a custom vector tile we generated just for our people that are doing public notifications, because it's simple. Doesn't show anything but street labels and streets. And if you want to say the site is here and print that and put it in a publication, it's easy enough to do. It's compatible with newsprint. And let's do, so the ESRI World Topo. And this is where I was going to kind of explain that, hey, this park right here, and they updated our vector tile portion of the community maps, I think last week, and this brand new skatable art park just went into place. Okay. So that's kind of how the difference between vector tiles. One thing I wanted to mention is that the vector tile for this street map right here is 49 megabytes. And this raster tile of the same thing is 45 gigabytes. So think about that footprint and think about other things that a vector tile might be used for. All right, I'm going to continue on to the next section.
Ned, I think it is important, though, that you have a comment on there that the only problem is that vector tiles cannot have any raster representations on them. So
that's correct. And
correct.
what that means is that you can't create a vector tile that shows imagery.
Right.
You can't create a vector tile that shows those lovely color relief maps that I was showing. Those all have to be raster tiles. Thanks for the heads up on that. I meant to talk about that. Continuing on, I wanted to show you some of the other uses that we have for these, and that is a shaded relief map. Okay. What I wanted to make clear to you on this is that this shaded relief map is a styled version of just our street map. And I'm going to show you on the next slide how we create a style. Okay. But this one, and if I move it fast enough, you'll be able to see, you can see that there is a black shaded relief underneath. And what we did was we styled this one in a slightly different color, and we put a 40% transparency on the background fill for parks and for inside the county and inside the city limits, so that you can zoom in at any point and see the lay of the land. So this is a mashup with a tiled shaded relief and a vector tile on top. We already kind of looked at the imagery with the hybrid effect. This is vector tile contours on top of a street map and raster tile contours. The difference being this one, the vector tile contours are about, I think they might be 80 megs, and this one is probably 30 gigabytes. And here are some other interesting things that we did. So this is a street fair that we generated in vector tile that shows all the booths for our art fair that we have once a year. Just a nice use of vector tiles. We're able to throw that in an application and people were able to look at booths and determine where they were. And this is a raster tile of hatch effect laid on top of a golf course that's used in a story map about this particular historic golf course. And it's just a nice effect. Just different ways to use tiles and to mash them up. So let's talk about styling vector tiles. We already looked at this hillshade. That's the dark gray one I was talking about, and it with a relief on top. Now let's open the style editor. So this is the style editor. You can see it's logged in as me. And these are all of my vector tiles. And what I wanted you to see here was, wait for it. It's on this one. I may have to search for it for a second.
While you're searching, Ned, Mark Falls from Minnesota also made a comment saying that, FYI, creating base maps with the classic vector works great for web building apps. However, building base maps with the new viewer allows you to actually zoom in past 1 to 70 in Pro. So there is some advantage to if you have that specific situation in which you might want to zoom in closer and maybe do it with the new app.
Correct, and that's probably something I should add because all of mine are cached down to 1 to 70 as far as it would go. And what's interesting though is that with the new raster tiles, ArcGIS Online allows them to do some sampling so that you can zoom in further than your last tile set and it'll just resample. So it'll get a little blurry after a bit, but I would never do a raster tile below 1 to 564 because the size of it would just be probably spend up all my credits.
Outrageous, yeah.
It would be outrageous, but you're correct. Thank you for the reminder on that.
Thank you, Mark.
All right, here it is right here. So this is a, let's go and edit this. We'll open it. So this is a style editor, and you can see here, and this, believe it or not, is the exact, it's a reference to the vector tile of our street map. So that if you update the street map, this guy gets updated also automatically. You don't have to do anything to maintain it. It just comes pre-symbolized. The only thing that could break it is if the you remove the layers that you had styled or something along those lines. So if we go look at the Leon County fill, you can see here I can change the color. I can change the opacity. And this is what I've done here is it's 88% opaque. And that's what's letting that shaded relief come through. So we've done some other things like one of our groups wanted our street map, but they didn't want it to show any parks. So I have one in here called No Park. And when you go look at this, you see it's basically our street map, but we turned off all the parks. And I didn't have to do anything other than restyle the base map and send them a link to it so that they could start using it. And so this is a way that one vector tile base map that takes me about 6 minutes to recreate, it's a way that we can do it really fast or make it have multiple uses also. So that's kind of a quick overview of the style editor. I would encourage you, if you make your own vector tiles, take time to play with it. There are some vector tiles that we currently maintain that I probably would have done as styles rather than their own vector tiles, like the grayscale that we have. All right, so building vector tiles. So if you build your tiles efficiently, if you take a look at this map right here, you can see the density of Tallahassee, where the urban development is right here. And you can see there's not a lot of development out here in the national forest. So if you allow ArcGIS Pro to create an index layer for it, it will make larger tiles in areas that don't have a lot of development, and it will make smaller tiles, more dense tiles in areas that do have a lot of development. So it's a good way to make them smaller. Use good cartographic principles. So don't show layers that aren't appropriate at a specific scale. If you haven't taken a look at the advanced symbology in ArcGIS Pro, I would encourage you to look at scale-based rendering. And I'm going to open up ArcGIS Pro in a few minutes and we're going to take a look at it. And I would also say that it's important to have power to tile. At TLC GIS, we have a pair of AMD Threadrippers in Lambda. Basically, these are our processing PCs. They do nothing but build tile. The one on the left builds tile, and the one on the right does AI. And so those are the kind of things that we work on. And just a quick AI thing here. We used AI to build all of these driving lanes in our parking lots. Something that would probably take staff 6 months to build. We built with AI, and then we QC'd it for a couple of weeks. So something to think about is having dedicated processing power for AI and for building tiles. So I'm going to go over here real quick to ArcGIS Pro. How am I doing on time?
You're doing well. You're about 35 minutes in. You're good.
Oh, good. All right, so this is the Leon County street map that we've been looking at so much. And I'm going to move a couple of things out of the way here. And what you can see here, if I zoom in on this thing, I want you to watch this draw in the bottom down here. This is a really, really, really nice PC. I mean, it can do lots. All right, it's got lots of processing power. And you can see here by how long this spins that I've got a lot of complicated content and labels going on in this thing. And if I was to try to draw this thing dynamically without a vector tile or a raster tile supporting it, it would be difficult. So this is what's what we're using. This is the map that we're using to update our base maps, and we do our base map updates monthly. I'll be doing one tomorrow. And what I wanted to show you here, this is ArcGIS Pro with about as many maps shoved in it as you've probably ever seen. Maybe you've got more, I don't know. But also, and yes, I'm aware that this can also be done with Python, but for right now, we're using Model Builder. And I wanted to show you the Leon County street map, the monthly vector tile, create, publish, and replace. That's this guy right here. Actually, yeah. So this is create vector tile package. This is copy. This is share package. This particular process creates an archive with today's date and time on it. And this process right here replaces the web layer out in ArcGIS Online. And this whole thing, so while I'm talking, I'm gonna go ahead and why don't we just run it now? We're gonna update the Leon County street map vector tile right now. So first we're gonna open it so you can just see how it's set up. You can see here, it's gonna create a file that already exists. It's called update2. It's gonna overwrite the one that we have out there. You can see I'm doing it, the scales that I'm using. I'm not using an index polygon because we're a pretty tiny county and this still doesn't take very long unindexed. And I've got a description of it in there. I create this copy file right here because this particular map is also can be used straight up in ArcGIS Online. I'm sorry, in ArcGIS Pro without going through ArcGIS Online. So the vector tile package that it generates can be read directly in ArcGIS Pro, not so in ArcMap. And that's another thing we should have talked about earlier when we talked about the rasters, is that the raster tile packages, the traditional tile packages can be read in ArcMap. Vector tiles cannot. So let's go ahead and run.
Another reason to move on beyond old technology.
Correct.
Yeah.
Another really good reason.
Yeah.
So we're copying this out to a file share for people to use, and we're giving it a name. So it's in a layers folder called Quick Start, and a lot of people use this. From time to time, I run into it locked. So let's go ahead and start running this.
By the way, while you're running it, Mark is just asking if you could share the model with people that are requesting it.
Sure.
Yeah. So if you give me a link, I will serve as sort of the courier, and if you want, I'll make it available to whoever goes and sends me an email.
That sounds good. I can even share. I can create a zip file and load up our vector tile into it, so you can use it at whenever you want, or look at it, or just maybe if you like our symbology, you can look at how we create it.
Thank you, Nate.
So while that's running, we're going to come back to it. I wanted to give you a look at symbology, the advanced symbology here. I wonder if this will let me. It may not. It's going to say, no, I'm busy. So one of the things that we can look at here, let's go to the desktop, is the resource monitor. And I talked to you guys about this earlier, and that is that right now, if this is sorted properly, it should be showing a series of, it may not use it for building a vector tile. No, it's not. It only uses it for raster tile. So usually it will load up a whole series of guest processes to run, just to run cache. But it doesn't appear to be doing that, and it's not writing a whole lot right now. I think it's still reviewing. It may not have started writing yet.
Interesting.
So let's go back here to this. So here we go. It's going to give me some warnings about labels in the national park. I need to look at those, but today is not that day. So it's actually building the vector tiles now. And you can see just how fast this is. So there's my warning about labels and shields. something I need to take a look at. But that'll be another day.
Yeah.
And normally what I'll do is I'll go out and talk to our technical staff and see if there's a particular impervious data set or building that they've updated this week so I can compare it once I've run this update. I'm kind of excited that we had time for me to actually show this running.
Like I said, we have as much time as you want.
Yep.
We have no fixed time limit on here, so.
Okay.
Good. So while you're running this, and you've been doing vector tiles for a while,
yes,
can you share with us some insights that you've learned that those of us that are just starting to get involved might find really important?
All right. So if you're using Web App Builder, Web App Builder consumes the classic web map. And you combine that with Google Chrome cannot use multiple WebGL layers or web graphic layers. And that's what these are. So if you start stacking vector tiles in a WAB basemap, a basemap that will be used in WAB, they look great on the screen, but they will not print properly in Chrome and in the Microsoft version. I always forget what it's called.
Edge.
They look great in Firefox and they print well in Firefox, but the Chromium browsers, they don't work as well. And I'm going to do some research to try to find out why. And it's just a print situation, you know. The other thing is that they work fine in Experience Builders. But like I said, I don't think Experience Builder has a print widget built yet. We're still kind of waiting for Experience Builder to be a more brought along product. So here we are coming up to the end of this. And our problem with Experience Builder right now is it can't receive an incoming URL parameter.
Right.
It's something that we've complained a lot about, and we won't be ready to move until it can. And then I'll have a lot of apps to rewrite. Because our effort here is to always keep up with whatever the appropriate edge of technology is. And just like that, now it's making package info files. There we go. It's the last little bit. This is probably where it's writing heavily. Yep, there they are. So you can see all those writing.
Interesting. Yeah.
And just like that, this process is done. So that may have been 6 minutes. So we'll run a copy. I'm going to rerun this process. And this process actually consumes itself. So you have to run these things in order. It's difficult to run them on an automation because this process will show as broken until the very end because the product created by this gets replaced when you run this. So I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but it's like a snake that eats itself. Ooh, somebody's locked my VTPK. All right, so let me close that. I'm going to remove this condition so I can go ahead and run my update to the web. That's just my local copy. I may have to run that after hours. So this is sharing the package to the web, and it's publishing it to the web at the same time. And it's publishing something called Webmap Update 2.
Update 2.
Yep. And as soon as we run the next process, Update 2 is shoved into the existing tile. So the GUID on the existing tile does not change. You're just taking a new vector tile that you've made, and you're replacing the information, replacing it into the other one. And if you have questions about that, let me know. So the reason I'm not doing this with Python is that the original Python scripts that Esri provided had some issues. And I started doing it this way because I could look at the output and I would be able to trust what was actually happening. I probably, once they update the Python scripts that they recommend using, I'll start using that again. Another issue that this replace process has, that there's a little checkbox under the settings that allows this to be downloaded, and it turns it off. And there's no setting in the model to reset that. I have to go in and manually check the box that says allow this vector tile to be downloaded, because there are folks that are downloading these.
Yes.
So just like that. So right here, you can see this is still gray, but I'm going to run it because now all the pieces are in place that will allow it to run. And just like that, it replaced the web layer. Done. So if we go back to one of these applications that we were using, let's go over here to this web app builder application. If everything worked right, this application should just display a new map. Oh, come on now, don't let me down. Just thinking about it. There we go. All right. So
And do you think that delay was probably because it wasn't pulling it from your local cache, but it was actually pulling it down from page UL?
So there you have it. That's how we create them. We kind of went over the using that advanced symbology. Make the best use of that, because that's actually something I wanted to also show here. Is kind of how that works. So let's go back to this remote machine and look at this for just a second on the Symbology tab. And we'll look at streets. And what I wanted to take note of is that, all right, so our streets come with elevations with an elev field. You can see this is symbolized by function class, which gives it the hierarchy. And it's also symbolized by elevation. And that's the beginning elevation and the ending elevation of each segment. And that enables us to identify them as overpasses or surface roads. So that when we come over here to this nice overpass, you can see that Adams and Bruno cross over the top of FAMU Way like they should, because there's a big overpass here. Same with this complicated intersection at Appalachia Parkway and Franklin Street. There's an overpass, but there's a ramp and multiple ramps going in this direction. And I wanted you to just kind of see how that works at scale. And what you're looking at here is local roads. Let's go to a neighborhood that has local roads right here. We are at one of the closest scales right now, so it's using this draw symbology right here. But as I zoom out, you'll see it get smaller and smaller appropriately. And it's trying to draw every time, so you can see it's spinning away, struggling with it. And when I finally get out to this level, you can see here that it's gone from a line with fill, cased roads, to just a little gray line. So you can still get a reference to it. You can still kind of see something. There's a street there, but it's not blocking. It's not making the map confusing. It's still easy to read.
Yeah, I actually love the scale based symbology on here, and it's a little strange when you first start using it, but once you understand what it's doing, it's amazing what you can do. Not just on cartography, but also on making your editing functions very easy, because you can go and actually symbolize it and show you certain things depending upon what scale you're at. So yeah, they've done a great job on that.
So there you have it. And I've noticed an error that I'm going to have to go talk to staff about. Old Bainbridge Road right here is no longer meeting an intersection, or no longer meeting the requirements of a street. Something's gone wrong with it, and I have to go find out what. So there you go. Always be QA, QCing.
Yes.
So continuing on, let's go back to our presentation here. All right, next up, offline mapping. So I wanted to show you offline mapping. So vector tiles are perfect for use in field maps, and they can be used in two ways. They can be used side-loaded, which means you throw them on there using File Explorer or a batch file, put them in the appropriate folder. Esri has instructions on how to do that and what folder to put them in. Or you can make them part of a mobile map package. So, and I can tell you right now why I wasn't able to overwrite. I had my own file locked a minute ago. It's always good to do. So if I go to this other project that I have open here, mobile map packages, should just take a second to open. Once I've created my vector tiles, I can add them to a map. This is just another project. This is a mobile parcel map. You can see it contains a Leon County street map. And if you look at the source for this, you can see, oops, it's just reading a VTPK, the one that we created and the one that we copied over. And if I run this process, I can quickly create the 3 mobile map packages that we use the most, the ones that you saw in that group that I was just showing you in ArcGIS Online. Okay, just like that, I can recreate them. There is a process that still has to be done manually on that, and that is that when I go over here, I have to actually, come on now, go and navigate to the file that I just created and upload it. But what a mobile map package does is I can have a vector tile base map, and then I can have dynamic layers. So in the one called, let's go back one on this. I can't, can I? Let's go here and then reopen it. Nope. So if I go to, I think I have it here, field worker, there we go. What it's actually doing is it's creating a mini geodatabase that's appropriate for use on a mobile device. And it will include parcels. In my case, it's got easements in it, and any number of layers that the end user can dynamically turn in and off. And it will actually use any pop-ups that you have created for it as well. So it's a nice way to take those vector tiles and push them just a little bit further. When we do our initial damage assessment here, our unit, TLC GIS, maintains 25 Samsung smartphones, updates the operating system, and we have batch files that will write our vector tile and any other information we need to send over to them all at once on all 25 phones, and have them ready to go in about an hour post-hurricane. So it's a really nice thing to have, and a nice thing to have available to you.
Interesting.
Yeah. So let's
By the way,
back.
I just noticed ArcGIS Pro 3.x just updated to 3.04.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. So it's not 3.1 yet, but 3.04. So that update just got released. I noticed.
Time to update. So
yeah,
now we're at 3:54, and I have time for questions.
You do. So do we have any questions? I don't see any chat window yet. Did I miss any yet, Chris?
No, other than the ones that you got from Mark. We haven't received any.
Okay.
I'm fine with open discussion too. If you guys want to talk, that's fine too.
Anybody that's that want to go and talk, ask any questions, any comments? You know, I continue to get amazed by what's going on right now on TLC GIS. And I know I've talked to you and I've talked to Scott. Scott has agreed to go and give a presentation sometime in the near future. So hopefully we can get him on here also and look at it from an organization standpoint. But you all are doing some amazing things up there.
Thank you.
Really, yeah.
This is our newly refreshed website, and I just wanted to show you this data dictionary. So this is available to the public. You just use keywords and do a search. You can look at our imagery and you can view the details for that imagery. There are, I want to say 349 total layers in it at this point. You can view the details for it, or you can just send it to a map. And so let's go look at the 1954 imagery. Just like that, it opens up in the new map viewer. And just like that, somebody can be looking at our imagery.
Wow.
That's a nice new function of our website. If you want to look at topography or a topography related layer, there you've got grades, topo maps, our map tiles for topography, 3 different sets of it. You can even type in a year. So let's go look at 2018. You can see our planimetrics for 2018, our imagery, our color infrared imagery, our existing land use, a whole series of layers that are just related to a specific year. So this is all done with tagging and a product called GeoJob that allows us to export a specific category. If you haven't categorized your content in ArcGIS Online, you should look at that. We made we made a custom category called Data Dictionary. When we have the GeoJob product export a CSV every Monday, and we upload that to the website to create this effect.
Give another shout out to GeoJob, another good group. They've got a lot of nice products coming out.
Yep.
Especially if you're working with ArcGIS Online, they've got some really nice tools to keep you organized and allow you to do things that you normally can't do with just the standard functionality. Yeah.
Thanks for letting me share that.
Yeah. Any other comments? We can let Ned go back to work but thank you again. Ned, I'm going to turn my webcam on. Thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you. You know, a big shout out again. Every time I go and talk to you those of you up there in Tallahassee, and it's an amazing group. Thank you for helping and sharing with us, and hopefully we'll get you come back and do something else. And as soon as you discover something else you're excited about.
Sure. Anytime. Right. And if you're going to the Southeast User Conference, don't come to the presentation. My presentation, it'll be the same thing.
Thank you again. I'm going to stop the recording and I will stop sharing and open up. And if anybody just wants to hang around and talk, we can do that. Thank you, everybody.
You're welcome.
Thanks for attending, and we hope you enjoy this workshop. If you have questions, would like some more details about anything we discussed during this workshop, or if you or anyone at your organization would like information about training, support, or ways in which we can help you with your GIS needs, please contact me at frank@pandaconsulting.com or call me at 561-691-3277, and we can discuss how we can help you with your needs.